Hello, Carrie Wedler here, and today I want to do something a little bit different because if you have been on the internet at all for the last few years, you are probably aware that censorship on big tech platforms has been increasing. The window of allowable opinion and content is shrinking, seemingly exponentially, increasingly so. And if you're familiar with my work, you probably know that I used to run a news organization called the antimedia.org. I was editor-in-chief. I was a journalist, and in 2018, Facebook and Twitter banned us on the same day. We never got our pages back. And around that same time, I think, from what I've noticed and been able to gather, my YouTube channel also started getting very throttled. I'm always demonetized, I'm age restricted. Sometimes if you're not logged into your YouTube, some of my videos, like the thumbnail will just show up as a blur. I feel like I'm living in a pretty mild episode of Black Mirror, but it has been frustrating to say the least. And all of this is to say, I don't know how much longer I'm going to have this channel. There's a good chance I'm going to get disappeared at some point, especially as things continue to devolve. So I wanted to take this video and just switch things up a little bit in several ways. One, you might be used to me very amped up in my videos. That is very much an authentic part of who I am. I really care when I am making this content and putting it out there. I do it because I care, but that's not really how I am in my day-to-day life. So I wanted to just take it down a notch and be a little bit more myself and share that side of me with you guys, because I swear I'm not just like the raging, like hand-throwing person that you see in all my videos. So that being said, here we go. So this month actually marks 10 years since I made my very first video for Ron Paul. I was telling people to please Google Ron Paul. He had woken me up that summer, and he was running for president for the 2012 election in the Republican Party, and I was so inspired by his fearlessness and how he refused to back down, even in the face of Republican authoritarians trying to shame him on stage at debates. He stood by his principles. He spoke out against the empire and corruption and authoritarianism, and that really lit a fire in me. And of course, I would go on to evolve in my views and my philosophy, and the way he was treated in the 2012 election was a big reason why. But that's how I got started, and it took a couple more years for me to become consistent in my content and to talk about things beyond Ron Paul. But that is how I got started. I'm very, very appreciative of him for that. I always love he continues to inspire me. And that said, now I want to go back even further. So if you've seen podcast interviews with me, you might be aware of this, but I just want to share it because I don't think I've ever talked about it directly on this channel. So I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised. I was born to some really cool people, parents. My mom chose to have me at home. Both of her kids are born at home. She didn't want to be in a hospital, no drugs. She's a cool lady. My dad's awesome too. And I was raised in an environment that was kind of like unschooling. Even though I did end up going to public school, my parents were just so enthusiastic about learning. And they instilled in me such a love of that. If I was interested in something, I got the materials I needed to learn about it. It was like, whatever you're interested in, learn about it. Awesome. And that has really colored my entire experience doing this work, because everything I make a video about, it's really just what I'm learning as I go and then sharing it with you guys and putting it out there in a way that makes sense to me. It's not my message, it's a message that I really value, and that the more I learn seems to be continually confirmed. So that's a big part of why I do what I do. My mom would always say, you can do whatever you want, but do something to help the world. And I know there are a lot of people who think I'm probably hurting the world with my dangerous rhetoric about peace and love and freedom, but I believe I'm doing something that is moral. So I'm very grateful for that upbringing. And then I also wanted to share that I actually had no direction in my life when I started making these videos, but I had always been interested in revolution. I was always into like the beat poets and the 1960s protests against Vietnam and the establishment, and like we can have opinions about the ideological underpinnings and how it went and the effectiveness, but I was always just inspired by pushing back against injustice and power and violence. And I even wrote my senior college thesis on Hungarian writers and revolutionaries, or Hungarian writer revolutionaries in the 1848 revolution against the Austrian Empire. And I was always drawn to that, but I just had no direction. And it's funny because that converged with going to public school. And as many of you probably know, because you went to public school, they would make you do presentations in front of the class. And I'm such an introvert, which you might not guess based on my demeanor sometimes in videos, but I'm very much introverted and shy. I film alone in my bedroom. I don't have to do it in front of crowds, and that's why I like it. But I would get so anxious. I had a few cool teachers who would let me do video projects, and I really enjoyed doing video projects, and it wasn't until years later when I started actually making the videos that these two interests actually converged, and it clicked for me like, this makes perfect sense. I never planned this path in life, but it kind of all happened organically, and I'm so grateful for that. So that being said, I would not want to lose this channel. I don't know if it's going to happen. This is just a just in case thing. I wouldn't want to lose this channel without expressing to you guys how absolutely grateful I am to have had the opportunity to make content like this that I really care about and that means so much to me, and to have it have been received at all. Anybody who's ever liked my videos or shared them or encouraged me or sent me an email of thanks or appreciation, thank you so much. It means so much to me. I really just speak from my heart and what I believe needs to be said, and it's so surprising to me and also so heartening that anybody has ever appreciated it. Again, it's not my message, it's a message that I really care about and value. So from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to all of you. This also includes people who have challenged me and disagreed with me. Thank you, because you have forced me, or coaxed, not like government violent force, but you have really pushed me to examine my own views and to refine them and to get more serious and more scrutinizing about what I believe. And I appreciate that as well. And I also so appreciate those of you who have been just awful to me, like vitriolic and mean without any intellectual challenge, just mean for the sake of being awful. Thank you. Because one, you've helped me see really how much suffering there is in the world, because I don't think people leave comments like that unless they're suffering themselves. But you've also forced me to turn toward my own suffering and wounds, because I would have to examine, and I still do, why these kinds of things upset me and trigger me. And it's been really helpful in turning toward myself. And that's actually another thing I want to share with you guys is, I'm talking about getting disappeared by big tech, but again, if you've followed me for a while, you know that I disappear myself quite often. I will take breaks from making videos. There's gaps in my content. I've never been someone to post all the time, and part of that is because I do all the work for my videos. I write them, I film them, I get all the content that I use in them, I edit it all. The only things I don't do are my thumbnails more recently and my audio. If you followed me for a while, you know I've always had audio issues, which makes no sense to me because I have good microphones. I've really tried, but the issue is what it is. This is all just to say they are pretty work intensive, and I love doing it, but they do take a lot out of me. And part of that is because of the subject matter, to be constantly immersed in brutality and violence and injustice and empire and just all the terrible things that I talk about in my videos. It can take its toll for anybody, not just for somebody who makes the content, anybody who cares. It can get quite heavy. So I found it is really important for me to take breaks and to care for myself, because if I'm out of alignment with myself, I don't make great content. That's what I think. That's what I have learned. And this wasn't the case when I first started making videos. Self-care has sort of evolved as something that's a really key aspect of my life. I do a lot of yoga. That I actually became a yoga instructor 7 years ago. I got certified. I don't really teach except at anarchist events. So if you ever see me there, I might be teaching a class. Daily meditation became a really big part of my life. Mindful awareness. I do that all the time. I cannot imagine my life without it. And a lot of these practices are fundamentally about compassion. And I want to talk about that just for a second, because in case I get disappeared, I don't want to not have said this. It has become such an important part of my life, both compassion for myself, for its own sake, and as an effort to have compassion toward others. Compassion, forgiveness. These are things that I think are so essential in a free society, but a free world, a free future. And a lot of people hear me say this and they're like, no, I'm not going to have compassion for somebody who wants to oppress me, who wants to use government violence against me. That's absolutely fine. I totally agree with the notion that we're not going to submit, but it's actually possible, in my experience, to have compassion for the people who believe these things, who support these things, while also not submitting. Like, the people who believe these things, in my opinion, are quite indoctrinated and programmed, and I believe it's totally possible to have compassion for them as victims of the system. And you can still say, no, absolutely not. I will not be oppressed. I will not let you trample me or my rights. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I think a lot of people, especially right now, are really averse to compassion and forgiveness, but I don't want to live in a world without it. And I think as long as we turn away from this, any free system or society, I'm going to keep saying society, it's just the most convenient word, but any free society is probably going to revert back to statism, because statism thrives on reactivity and fear and anger. And that's not to say our anger is not justified. It's completely justified. You can't be checked out of the system and see it for what it is and not have a degree of anger. I think that's really healthy. However, I think there's a way to channel it and to hold space for it without letting it run us, because I have found in my life that if I am reactive and I'm a slave to my emotions and I'm not conscious of them and I can't hold space for them, I'm not actually free. And I just want to say that to me, it's so important and it's so essential. And I think it's not really something not anybody, a lot of people turn away from it, but I think it's really, really essential in our fight for freedom in the material world. I think we need to have it internally, and that matters so much to me, and I wanted to share that. So with that being said, I might get banned, I might not, who knows? As much as these things can be heavy, I really want to stress that I have it pretty easy. I can make videos from my home talking about all these things, but there are actual victims of statism. There have been for centuries, thousands of years, there continue to be, and that's the reason I won't stop. I might get banned, I might have to go to other platforms. I'm gonna I actually have set up a Telegram channel. I'm gonna link to it. I haven't started using it yet. I'll post my other backups and everywhere you can find me in the event that I do lose this channel. But I'm not going to quit, one, because I think it needs to be said, and two, I'm actually quite optimistic in terms of history, in terms of modern technology, and the rapid acceleration of consciousness that seems to be occurring right now. I know some people are taking a step back, but I think a lot of people are taking a step forward. And as far as history goes, the evolution of consciousness toward government really is away from government and toward freedom and decentralization. Again, it's like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing, often throughout history. But there was a time when people believed, or the predominant narrative was, that kings had a right to rule because God said so. People don't believe that anymore, and I think the evolution will continue. The Constitution was really cool. I think we can evolve past that too. Not me, I know. If you watch my videos, you know my views on the Constitution, but I do think the evolution really is on our side toward true freedom and true peace and cooperative voluntarism. And also, regimes fall. That's the nature of history, and maybe we won't see it in our lifetimes, but I am so incredibly optimistic that things are going to work out for the better in the long term, and maybe even the short term, but it is a little darkest before the dawn type situation, it seems right now. But with all the technology, all of the disruptive ways that people are challenging the system, cryptocurrency, encrypted messaging, I know these are just small examples, but just the ideas of decentralizing and becoming less dependent on the state. Like, the state's going to render itself obsolete. Look at it. Look at how it has behaved, and the worse it gets, the more people wake up. So in a way it's depressing, in a way it's incredibly inspiring, and that's another reason I'm not going to stop. I am genuinely optimistic, and I see every reason to keep going and keep pushing. Now, that being said,
I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving! They're gonna need to send in the National Guard or SWAT team, because I ain't going nowhere!
Seriously though, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This has been the dream job I didn't even know I had. I am so grateful for all of the experiences I've had, all the people I have connected with, anyone who has liked or watched or shared my videos, anyone who's ever sent me an email of appreciation or absolute hatred. I am grateful for all of it. You're all in my gratitude meditations. I'm going to keep making content that may or may not get me banned. So in the meantime, peace, love, and freedom.